Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to our Obi-Wan after show. This is an open spoiler discussion where we talk about all the details about Obi-Wan, in this case, episode 4. We are now on the 4th episode. We are, what are we now? 2/3 of the way through the entire series in just like 2 weeks, it feels like.
It really has felt like 2 weeks.
And it might literally have been like 2 weeks.
Yeah, Friday and yeah.
They dropped 2 at once and 2 more. Anyway, we are now at episode 4. We're going to talk about episode 4 in an open spoilery way. So if that didn't give it away to you guys, if you have not seen Obi-Wan episode 4 yet and you don't want to be spoiled for it, you may want to just add this video to your favorites list and come on back a little bit later. I'm joined by Robert Meyer Burnett here as we're going to talk about this. Robert, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, I'm looking forward to For All Mankind starting this week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. What do you always call it? From here to the moon?
From the Earth to the moon. That was the HBO miniseries that was so good.
All right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. Rob and I are going to start things off by talking about what we thought about it. And then in the second half of today's video, we're going to go over and take the comments, questions, thoughts, and opinions that you guys had about episode 4. Now, we do that by opening up the super chats. However, it filled up before we even started the show. Right. So the super chats are now closed, but if you got your super chat in before we started, we will get to that in just a little bit. So let's get things started here. So far on our journey on Obi-Wan, I really loved, I loved episode 1. I enjoyed episode 1.
I did too.
A great deal. Episode 2 was, it was a big step back. I didn't hate it, but it was a step backwards. Episode 3 had some questionable stuff in it, but I really had a good time watching episode 3. I didn't like it as much as episode 1. If you saw the John Campea Show earlier today, when we talked about Obi-Wan episode 4 in a non-spoilery way, you guys heard me mention that not only do I think episode 4 is the worst episode of Obi-Wan so far, not only do I think it's the worst episode of Star Wars content on Disney Plus so far, I think this is the worst episode of anything they've put on Disney Plus so far.
Wow.
And I include like Hawkeye in that, which I didn't enjoy Hawkeye.
Don't mince words, John. What do you really think?
I include Boba Fett in that, which I didn't super enjoy Boba Fett. I thought this was a tremendously disappointing episode, and we'll go into some of the reasons why here in a bit. But before we do, you know me, guys. I like to focus on positive stuff when I can. Even when I talk about the Star Wars prequels, which I think are steaming, heaping piles of garbage, I can talk all day about how great I think the pod race scenes are, how great the music in it is, how fantastic the Obi-Wan Qui-Gon Darth Maul battle is, how much I love seeing little Master Yoda flipping all over the place, having his lightsaber fight. I mean, I love talking about the things I like, even if it's in a movie or a TV show I don't like. So let's start off by talking about some of the things that I really liked about this episode of Obi-Wan. Okay. Now let's move on to the things I didn't like. No, there are a few things I appreciated. There's, like, for instance, I really do enjoy this character that I cannot remember. She's the mother of snakes, whatever, from I can't remember. What did they say her name was again? We read off her name earlier today, and I can't remember. But the actress from Game of Thrones.
She's really good.
I like that character very much.
Yeah.
Like, she's not a rebel who's impersonating. No, she's an Imperial officer. She is a legit Imperial officer who's just realized, like, this is stupid being an Imperial officer. So I'm going to work to help this underground railroad, which is something they introduced in the last episode, which I really like a lot. This whole idea about this being this underground Jedi railroad to ferry Jedis, rogue Jedis to safety and stuff like that. I love that concept. I love her being in there. While I did not love all the things the writing had her do this episode, I still like that character a lot. Secondly, pissed off Vader. Give me pissed off Vader all day, every day. Again, I'm not particularly thrilled with one or two of the choices he makes, but still, like, when Vader comes marching into that room, clearly upset, it's like, yeah, this is the kind of thing I live for, is to watch Vader being this mad and this upset. And it's just like, I do not suffer fools. I do not put up with failure, that sort of thing. A little bit of foreshadowing for what Admiral Ozzel had coming to him a few years later down the road, right?
He came out of light speed too close to the system.
Too close. He is as clumsy as he is stupid. So I like that. Another thing I like, legitimately, I really like the interior design of the Fortress Inquisitorius. Like, as they even utilize certain camera shots that were very reminiscent of the original Star Wars. Like the types of, like the way a stormtrooper helmet would come into frame and stuff like that. Like it was very reminiscent of the way George Lucas would shoot that stuff. The hallways themselves felt very Death Star from Episode 4, A New Hope. And so watching those interior shots, it was a real nice nostalgia for me while also making it feel like Star Wars. Right?
I completely agree. That was one of the things I really loved is you see more of this base. It feels like Star Wars. The hangar deck, first of all, with the hanging TIE fighters, and it really does feel like.
By the way, TIE fighters that apparently don't fly, but we'll cover that in just a few minutes here.
It does feel like Star Wars, and I do like that base. I think it's really cool that it goes underwater as well.
Yep.
You know, and I like a lot of the control areas are underwater, so outside you can see into the ocean. I think that's very, very cool too. It does feel like Star Wars.
One of the other things I liked about it, you mentioned during one of the previous episodes, this notion that you really like feeling that the people, the men and women under the stormtrooper helmets are real people. Like, so we hear them talking to each other, right? There's this one little exchange that happened in the episode that I thought was rather funny, where it's two stormtroopers walking down the hall and just like, this place gives me the creeps. And like the other one's like, yeah, hopefully we're not going to be stationed here long and we can get the hell out of here. I was like, I like hearing that stuff. Like these, like, it's a little inside baseball, but it just harkens to our friend Kevin Rubio's Troops.
Right.
Which if you've never seen Troops, it's the greatest. It's one of the original, and it is still to this day the greatest Star Wars fan film ever made. You should check it out. It's called Troops. Go look it up. You'll have no problem finding it.
You know, one of the things I was complaining about last week was the way the show is shot using the volume stages.
Right.
I don't feel that way inside the Inquisitorium.
This one felt more like practical sets.
It did. It had a great look to it. I didn't feel that same sense of claustrophobia or that it's very limited in how it was shot. Maybe it's because it did feel like Star Wars, and I felt differently watching this episode. It felt more like, oh, now we're really in a Star Wars environment. I guess it's just I'm sick of Tatooine.
Yeah,
I'm just
or
sick
other sand-related
or the
planets.
sand. Like, give me, because Star Wars environments are so cool. The interiors of them, whether it's the giant hugeness of Starkiller Base or the Death Star itself or the bridge of a Star Destroyer, I like Imperial architecture.
Yeah, no, I do too. And so, yeah, like within this episode of this extremely short episode of Obi-Wan, episode 4, there were a couple of shining moments, I thought. There's a couple of shining things. That being said, we opened up the show here by me saying I think this was singly the worst episode of anything that Disney Plus original that they had ever put on, and it was infinitely disappointing. I'll start with a scene that was practically unwatchable, which was the whole scene with Reva and Leia. That scene is so badly framed, it's so badly written, and it's so badly acted that it was difficult to watch. And you're like, this is an Inquisitor. This is the worst interrogation I have ever seen, ever. And I love the girl who plays Leia. Like I do too. I can eat that kid up. I love every second she's on screen. I really do. But that scene in there with Reva, I thought was unwatchable. But then there were a couple things. We are asked when we watch any kind of science fiction, fantasy, whatever movie, that there are moments we have to suspend disbelief. We get that. And I've said this a lot before. I don't expect a movie to follow my worldly logic, because we're in a world where things defy our logic. What I do ask a movie or a TV show to do is to follow its own internal logic.
Yes.
Right? That's all I ask. Hey, yeah, a superhero can fly. Okay, in my world they can't, but in this world they can. All I ask is that a show or a movie follow its own logic rules that it sets up. Okay. This is not a small thing. There's a scene in this episode, and I know it's a joke that stormtroopers are notoriously bad shots. these is far too precise for, sand people. Only Imperial troopers are this accurate. Anyway, so Obi-Wan Kenobi is in a small, narrow, tight hallway with nowhere to go. He has stormtroopers and tracker droids both in front of him and behind him that both start opening fire. Obi-Wan is facing one direction, and he's blocking shots coming from that one direction. Meanwhile, there are enemies with guns behind him. Again, narrow, tight, small hallway. And they are firing and just missing him. He's literally standing, 15, 20 feet away in a narrow hallway with his back to them because he's blocking the shots. Apparently, he didn't need to block them anyway, but blocking the shots from the guys on this side, so he'll block some of those, and then he turns around and blocks some of the other one. I'm watching this, and it's like, I get it. Stormtroopers aren't the best shots. I get it. Sometimes in all of our movies, we need the heroes to be the beneficiaries of some poor marksmanship from the villains shooting after them. I get that. But this was so utterly preposterous. I'm just watching this, and I'm going, this is stupid. By the way, you mentioned the architecture, Imperial architecture, right? And how cool it was that it partially goes underwater. Yeah, okay. So this is so brilliantly put together that if one fucking window gets cracked, in this Fortress Inquisitorius, then as in the words of Fifth Brother, it nearly destroyed the base. Because of one crack in the glass. That's what it is. And then when the glass breaks and the water comes in, man, Obi-Wan's fast. Usain Bolt's got nothing on him because he was like way ahead of that water. And as he's running through the doorway, right, the water is right on top of him. But then the camera cuts inside, the door closes, and not one drop of water came through. Again, that is a momentary thing, but it's when it's one thing, then compiles on another thing, and then another thing, and then I got to bring this up. Oh my God, I got to bring this up. Why the ships in Mandalorian and even the Book of Boba Fett all look great when they're flying, they're moving. There's a sense of verisimilitude to it. They feel real. Those ships are there. All the ship stuff in Obi-Wan, and I'm talking previous episodes till now, but especially in this episode, looks so much like badly done 2002 cutscene video game stuff. It looks horrible, with the crowning jewel of awfulness being these two speeders flying. By the way, TIE fighters in the hangars and all that. Apparently, there's no such thing as patrols because two speeders just fly right up to the damn place. There's no guns on it to repel any potentially attacking things. None whatsoever. It literally just flies right up to the hangar. So it's going pew, 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 just standing there. And it looks awful. It looks so completely fake. And it's like, are there no weapons? Are there no guns? And then when the one ship finally gets away, okay, now there we go. And the Inquisitors never say, oh, no, well, there they go. They got away fair and square. But don't we have some ships so we can go after them? That wouldn't be sportsmanlike. Do we not? I mean, even the Death Star had like Star Destroyers around. Do we have nothing in orbit? Vader himself, his palace is in this sector. Do we have nothing up there? Oh, no, man, they're gone. As soon as they start to fly away, they get away. There's nothing we can do. We can't. There's nothing we can do. Nothing we can do. Okay. It's especially when you're talking about a singular talent like Deborah Chow, who has done such great work in this world already. I am flabbergasted about how an episode of Star Wars can come out of a system where nobody stopped and looked at and said, this will not do. This cannot go out
in the edit
public.
Bay? When they're going,
in the edit bay, or in the,
trying to figure out the logical
dailies,
problems.
or in the anything. How anybody let this thing go out the door. It is the, I'll say this, and I'm somebody who hates the prequels, the Star Wars Christmas special, holiday edition. This is the worst Star Wars thing I've ever seen. This is the worst Star Wars thing I've ever seen.
Well, to go on to that, the scene where the speeder's like floating, and then Reva has her lightsaber, and it's like, and it just looked ludicrous.
Yeah,
I mean,
awful.
I mean, I understand that speeders. We've never seen a snow speeder. I guess it's not so speeder, but just a speeder, just hover and fire.
Well, to be fair, in Empire, that's exactly how they get started. We see them hovering off the
we
thing.
see them. I get that, but like this is in full-on attack mode.
Yeah, and nobody else in that hangar has a gun, by the way, to shoot that speeder that's just sitting there taking pot shots at our boss.
I mean, you've got how many? There's Imperial officers all over the place. There's stormtroopers all over the place, and you're looking at this, and also, what about? Call it radar, sensors, anything? Like, wouldn't they be tracking ships within that star system? They would know when ships were coming in and out of hyperspace. They would know who's showing up.
How'd those speeders get into our hangar bay? Well, we didn't see them coming.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any tracking equipment, apparently. Anybody could just show up here. Because why not? I mean, this is a lot of people say that we might be a little nitpicky, but if you set up in your universe that you have sensors and you can see what's coming in and out of the system, which by the way is pretty standard in most science fiction. There's some kind of, call it radar, call it what you want. Apparently not at all. And if they were jamming or they had something, let's have somebody say that. Because otherwise we're sitting here, like I'm sitting here watching these things. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are the Imperial officers this stupid? Like, what if somebody wanted to attack this base? I mean, they are an empire. They did overthrow a republic.
And now, let me throw something in here, okay? Because I can hear them, Rob. I can hear them right now. Some people yelling at their computer monitors. But John, they said earlier that they don't have a lot of defenses because nobody would be stupid enough to attack them. Really? Why not attack them? Apparently you can just get in an old speeder, fly right in the front fucking door, start shooting everybody up, then go, peace everybody, turn around and just casually drive away. Why wouldn't anybody attack them? There's like literally nothing stopping some hayseeds from flying in there and shooting the place up. It's like so utterly ridiculous. It's so bad.
Well, it also goes, I mean, I have to say that one of my biggest problems with this show has been the Inquisitors themselves. As we're introduced to them, really good at their jobs. Great opening scene. They've gone all the way to Tatooine to find a Jedi. They smoked him out. They knew what restaurant he was in. In this episode, the Inquisitors they seem to be surprised. Like, tell me about this underground railroad. You would think after 10 years of finding Force-sensitive people that the Inquisitors would know about a lot of stuff, a lot of how people are being shuffled around. If there were people that they were chasing and then they suddenly disappeared, you would think the Inquisitors, because they're Inquisitors and they can pull things out of your brain, that they would be able to know about these underground networks. There would be underground networks, I would imagine, all over the place. How else would they know somebody went to Tatooine? You know, these are smart people.
Sort of.
Maybe not.
Maybe not all that smart.
And I think when you make these villains, you make your villains incompetent. Vader was never incompetent. You know, in Empire Strikes Back, I loved how he would choke people out that were on different ships than him, you know, or maybe he was in his meditation chamber and he's talking to Admiral Ozzel, you know, or whatever. And if they did something, he would get rid of them. And these Inquisitors, they're pretty stupid. I mean, ultimately, and if they're supposed to be really good at their jobs, I mean, Reva has this cockamamie plan to have Leia kidnapped. She's kidnapped. That started all of this. But once Bail Organa's daughter is kidnapped, wouldn't they be watching Bail Organa? Wouldn't they be monitoring all communications if they're looking for him to smoke out Obi-Wan?
To be fair, Reva's trying to do that one completely off books.
I know.
She didn't even let Vader know about that.
Of course not.
But talking about Reva and the plan to extract information, you and I were talking about this off camera. In the scene, she tries to pull something out of the mind of Leia, right? These are Inquisitors whose whole purpose for existing is to identify and track down Jedi and Force-sensitive people.
Kids, younglings as well.
Younglings as well. She has in her presence maybe a Nexus being in the sense of quite possibly the most force-powerful being in the galaxy being the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. And she can't fit. Wow, I just guess you're strong. I tried to reach into your head. I couldn't pull anything out. I must just be having a bad day. Nothing in you that could remotely be force sensitive. I mean, come on.
And also, but she knows that it's not like she didn't ask to be kidnapped. She wasn't a part of this. The only reason that she got caught up in all of this is because Reva had her kidnapped by Flea. Not even like great bounty hunters, not Zuckuss, not Dengar, not Forlom or IG-88. Flea and his merry band of ne'er-do-wells chasing her through the woods. I mean, these are the people that have kidnapped her, and yet Reva's like, give me the information I want. She's like, she might as well said.
By the way, the guy she killed at the end of the tunnel, she probably could have gotten some information out of that guy in the Underground Railway. No, I'm just going to kill you. I'm not going to get any information out of you.
And it's
out of the kid.
Like, what is she? She didn't even know who Ben Kenobi was. Who are you?
And also, I heard people saying to me, saying, "No, John, you don't get it. You don't get it, John. You see, Reba wanted them to get away because you put a tracker up. No. That was a failsafe." Because the only thing Vader cares about is not finding some stupid underground Jedi railway. The only thing Vader cares about is Kenobi. And they had Kenobi. And Kenobi got away. That was it. It was not like, okay, I'll admit. No. That's the only thing Vader cared about. Like in the original Star Wars, when Vader did the old trick that we put a tracker on this thing, blah, blah, it's because what they actually cared about was finding the rebel base. That was their ultimate end goal. His entire end goal, and the whole reason Reva has been doing this, is to get in good with Vader by getting Kenobi. And they had him, and she let him get away. And he was like, oh, okay, well, you put in a backup plan in case you effed everything up. Okay, I'm going to let you live.
Well, how about beyond that? They still had Leia. Why did they think Kenobi wouldn't show up at their base? If Kenobi was going to get Leia, because rescue the kid.
Because nobody would be stupid enough to attack the place, Rob. Right. Didn't you hear them say that in the show?
I mean, I would think that they would have just waited for Kenobi to show up at the Grand Inquisitor headquarters and like he did, and just to hang out and wait for him to show up. And why wouldn't, after Reva explained what was going on with this little kid and everything, why wouldn't she call Vader and go, Kenobi came and got this girl once. He'll probably come and get her again. Why don't you come here and hang out? And
eventually, it looked like he was hanging out there because he came walking in the room and said,
but when Kenobi was there, wouldn't he sense him?
No, Rob, you're asking me that like I would have the answer. I have no answer for this. And again, I think if this show to me had been a stink fest from episode 1,
right,
at this point I would just be whatever. It's just par for the course. It's just that this show has been, in my personal estimation, up until episode 4, this show's been pretty good. Like I said, I loved episode 1. I quite enjoyed episode 3. Yeah, episode 2 I thought was kind of shaky. I did. But seeing this, and listen, I will still say this, as naive as it may make me sound, I still believe it's possible that this show can be salvaged.
Yeah.
I believe an absolute kick-ass episode 5 and 6 finish strong. I still believe that if this show finishes strong with a really solid episode 5, a really solid episode 6, this episode 4 will just become an afterthought. It's like, okay, yeah, there was that one episode that was totally awful, but otherwise Obi-Wan was pretty okay. And I'm still going to keep my fingers crossed and believe that episode 5 and episode 6, because you combine that with the great episode 1, a really, in my opinion, a pretty solid episode 3, that'll be enough to push it over the edge to say this show was a pretty darn good show. It's hard to imagine how they recover. Erin said this earlier today on the show. She said it's hard to imagine how you recover for an episode like this. It's like watching a basketball game and a team just get its ass handed to them and loses by like 40 points. It's like, how do you recover from that going into the next game? How do they turn this around going into this next thing? And by the way, we never got our flashback episode.
Not yet.
With apparently 18 minutes left in the show, we're probably not going to get. I'm guessing we're not going to get a flashback now, and I really thought we were.
I mean, I'm sure that like Hayden Christensen was like, "Great, they want me to come back. Maybe we'll get to see Clone Wars flashbacks that we haven't seen before." Can you imagine being Hayden Christensen and you've read the scripts up through episode 4, and you're like, "Oh, what am I gonna? I'm just in Vader's. Like, I'm gonna perform in Vader's costume."
Well, we get to see him
a little bit,
yeah,
but he doesn't even like
back to tank. Yeah.
I'll tell you something else too that bothers me a lot about a lot of these franchises. there's a pretty good novel called Kenobi. It's Legends now, so it's decanonized, but it deals with his early days in when he goes to Tatooine. It was pretty good. It had a really interesting story where he was the central focus. I think the thing that's disappointed me the most is I feel like he's a guest star in his own show. Like
See, I don't agree with that. I still feel like he's been the central figure of the show.
Well, he's being dragged around by everybody else. I mean, it's like, okay, we're going to give him a mission now where he's going to go rescue Princess Leia. This episode was sort of a replay of the original Star Wars. Let's go to the Imperial base, the Death Star. Leia's being tortured, or she's being inquisited. She's being questioned, and then they have to go rescue her. And it just seemed like, of all the stories you could tell about Obi-Wan Kenobi having to do something and dealing with the fact that the Jedi failed and it's been 10 years and he's been overseeing Luke this whole time, of all the stories they could come up with, I would think that there would be something that was more focused. I mean, I understand people will be like, well, Rob, he's suffering from PTSD. By rescuing Leia, this is the way to bring him back and restore his Jedi luster. And I'm like, okay, but really? Of all the things in the galaxy, you're going to go rescue Princess Leia again? Actually, the first time?
You know me, I didn't mind that because I don't mind repeating those kind of things if you execute it well.
Yes.
The problem for me was it wasn't executed well. That was the issue.
No, it's not. But also, when you see I appreciate when you're trying to do this Inquisitor scene with Leia and Reva. Again, I feel like I'm watching this and I'm like, you should be seeing this from Kenobi's perspective, not that Inquisition scene, but the whole thing about it is focus more on Kenobi, and it seems like every time they want to move away from Kenobi, they will. And I really want to know, like, what does he think about all of this? It's like, we have to go rescue her. Well, okay, I get that, but and then what are you going to do? Why does he call up Bail Organa and go, look, man, the Empire, you're an Imperial senator. The Empire has your daughter. Maybe call them.
I think he knows I would probably expose Bail if he did that. But here's something else I didn't bring up that Aaron did a little bit earlier today. When Obi-Wan Kenobi gets on the radio with you and says, I need a distraction, he's probably thinking, set off an alarm, make something blow up somewhere. Right. Not ask for an audience with an Inquisitor who then they immediately take under custody. But don't worry, everybody, because one good slap will knock out a stormtrooper. She literally slaps the side of a storm. Like, we've always laughed about, what is the point of stormtrooper armor? Because they seem to drop pretty quick whenever they get hit with anything. I thought that was pretty fun. Anyway, guys, listen, we've gone on about this long enough. Clearly, listen, there were some diamonds in the rough. I think there were some good elements of this episode. I still have some hope, a new hope, if you will, that episodes 5 and 6 will salvage this series for us. Because again, I think we've seen some flashes of brilliance. I love episode 1. I think that they can finish strong. But you've heard us going on long enough about this thing. Obviously, we were pretty disappointed with the episode. Now the question is, what do you guys think about the episode? So we're going to spend the rest of our time now going to you guys and taking your comments and questions that you guys have been firing into us. But before we get to those, we want to take a second to thank one of the sponsors of this Obi-Wan After Show, our friends over at Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. You know, the one with the delightful ads with good Canadian kid Ryan Reynolds. So look, after years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't a catch. And guys, that's no joke, because for years I've been using one of the major providers and it was fine. But I switched over to Mint Mobile a little while ago. The service has been fantastic. And the big difference is I'm now paying about 1/3 of what I was paying before. And the best part for anybody who just hates their phone bills is that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text, plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to Ryan Reynolds and Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of our Obi-Wan after show. All right, guys, we said it was time to take your live questions, so we're going to do that right now. We're going to jump over here, and we're going to start off things with JR, who writes, like Boba Fett, I'm shocked how disappointing Disney Plus Star Wars has been. They need to step it up. Well, now time out for a second. Let's not pretend that Mandalorian Season 1 and Season 2 suddenly don't exist. I mean, they're still doing pretty good. Look, even with Boba Fett, which, ultimately I didn't like all that much, but it had moments, and Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, they're doing okay so far.
Yeah, and I have to say, if you look at the writing staff on Andor, it's people.
Exceptional.
It's people that brought us the Bourne Identity, the Americans, people that have
Tony Gilroy's on there, and bless you.
People that have written spy shows. I think that Andor is going to be the series. I didn't think that this would be the case, but I think Andor is really going to be something special. And like you said, Mandalorian's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, let's not dispel the whole thing quite yet. All right. Next up, we got A. Marcellus, who writes, I respectfully do not like Deborah Chow's direction in this show. Her Mandalorian episodes were good, and the first episode of this show was decent, but overall, she and the writers are not a good fit. Well, now, hold on a second. You can't say, her Mandalorian episodes were really good, and the first episode, I contend, was more than decent. I thought the episode was really, really good. Okay, well, that makes 50% quite good and 50% a little bit more questionable. So I wouldn't say overall it hasn't been good. I think, again, I am kind of surprised because Deborah Chow has shown what she can do. And that's why I'm kind of really disappointed. Like, if I had directed this episode of Obi-Wan, I wouldn't be so shocked that it turned out this bad. But it's Deborah Chow, who's really good. So I don't know. There's that. All right. Next up, we got South Texas Shark writes, they didn't beef up security after Cal broken in. Oh, I mean, going back to the game and stuff like that. Yeah, you'd think nobody would be dumb enough to break in here. Why? It's the easiest thing in the world to break into. They won't even chase you if you do. It's amazing. All right, next up, we got Richard, who writes, have to agree with stormtroopers. If I was stationed there, the fortress would give me the creeps as well. Yep, because you're walking around on patrol knowing if one crack in the glass happens, you're dead. You are Godfather swimming with the fishes if that happens. So yep, if I was a stormtrooper, I'd want to get out of there too. All right, Jack Furstenberg writes, while I didn't dislike the episode as much as you might have, its mediocrity is unacceptable when the series only has 6 episodes to tell its story. This comes back to something we've been talking about for a while now. This whole 6 episode nonsense. Because, and first of all, 6 episodes, and you're making them about 30 minutes. Why not make an hour and 45 minute to 2 hour movie that is all killer, less filler? Like this, it just feels empty. Water, and again, you could feel them cheaping out. I mean, the effects were terrible in this thing, but I don't know, like the 6 episode thing here, because they've only got 2 episodes to turn. If this was an 18 episode season, so okay, episode 4, plenty of time to turn this thing around, make great. They got 2 episodes left.
Yes, and I'm still waiting. Other than they've given Obi-Wan Kenobi a mission to complete that we've actually seen variations of before. I would like to have seen a story that was, I always criticize people. I'm like, don't review things about what they're not. Only review things about what they are.
Right.
But in this case, I am reviewing about, it's not the story that I wanted. It's about telling a story that, like, George Lucas looked to Kurosawa, when he made Star Wars. He looked at the Hidden Fortress. He looked at Seven Samurai. He looked at World War II movies like The Dam Busters to have those battle scenes over the Death Star. That's what they were inspired by. Well, I feel like all anybody now is looking at is other Star Wars things. When I would love it if somebody...
Well, the fans cry a lot when they don't. I mean...
Well, but what I mean is in terms for story inspiration, like look at The Man with No Name, or look at like Unforgiven. Unforgiven is a guy for 10 years. He's been living on a farm, with his kids, and he has to go off on a mission, and he's not a good shot anymore. Why not use something like Unforgiven for inspiration? Now we're seeing him go rescue Princess Leia. Like, can you imagine that story meeting? Here's what Ben Kenobi should do. He should go rescue Princess Leia from an Imperial base while she's being interrogated by an Imperial officer.
I still don't mind the general plan of, like, again, understanding that they have been hunting for Kenobi for 10 years. And then they after 10 years resort to, okay, well, I got a long shot idea. We know Kenobi and Bail Organa were tight. What if his child disappears? I don't mind that. Like that to me, I don't mind it. Not as a first plan to come up, but with 10 years later, I don't mind that. Again, it's just, they haven't done anything meaty with that, right?
No, and they do know that by having her kidnapped, they did get Kenobi. We don't know how Kenobi found out. They don't necessarily know.
They did flush him out. It worked.
They did flush him out. It worked. So I would say call Bail Organa and go, hey, we got your kid. You want your kid back? We got your kid back from kidnappers. We'll give her back, but we need Kenobi.
All right, next up. We've got Mickey Veach who writes, fun fact, the fortress is the same fortress in Jedi Fallen Order. Yep. The glass breaking scene is more infuriating knowing that Cal did the same thing and the Empire hasn't learned its lesson. I totally forgot about it. Did that happen? I don't remember that part in there, but doing the same breaking the glass in the other one. If it's true, that makes it even more confounding. It absolutely does, Mickey. Well pointed out, man. Ryan Holan writes, enjoying the show, but this was my least favorite episode. In those underwater corridor hallways, it looked like they didn't properly hide the green screen. Best bit was at the end of the two holding hands. I mean, that was a nice moment.
That was a nice moment.
It was. And I agree. Episode 2 was weak to me, but generally speaking, before I hit play on Obi-Wan episode 4 last time, I'm enjoying Obi-Wan. I'm enjoying it. Not as good as The Mandalorian, but I'm enjoying it so far. Yes. Now I really need episode 5 and 6 to kick it into high gear. All right, next up. We got James Argenta, who writes, while this episode was the weakest, I have faith in Andrew Stanton, who one of the writers on each of the final 2 episodes. That's right. I remember hearing about that. Andrew Stanton, for those of the guys who don't know, this is an all-star. Andrew Stanton's a ringer. I mean, he was one of the brainchilds of the origins and those original big decade years of Pixar. He was the guy who was behind, while it was a major flop, it was an incredible movie, John Carter, or what it should have been called, John Carter of Mars. He did a fantastic job of that. And
he directed Finding Nemo, right?
I believe he did.
And Finding Dory.
He's got Oscars on his mantle. He is a superstar. And so let's see if we can see his influence going into these last 2 episodes. All right. Next up, we got A. Marcells who writes, Lucasfilm forgot how lightsabers work. Those multiple slashes to the I did notice that to the stormtroopers was infuriating. Why does this new era of Star Wars hate lightsaber dismemberment so much? Yeah, like he's hitting the stormtroopers like he's just hitting them with the rock. Like,
especially after you got that laser shield last episode, cut a stormtrooper in half. There was that great moment.
And all it did when you see the stormtrooper's body fall, just a little burn mark on the armor. It's like, again, they're just trying to save money. It feels like they're just trying to save money. All right, next up, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John and Rob, I hate to disagree with you, but I like this episode very much. Yes, it was short, but I found it to be very fun, a very fun rescue adventure. I actually love the scenes between Reva and Leia. It very much reminded me of A New Hope. That Vader scene with him pissed at Reva was incredible, or Reva was incredible. Yes, it was a short episode that I could agree with you, but other than that, I had very little issues with the episode. Well, I would say this, Ben, and I mentioned this on the show, the John Campea Show earlier. If the episode is great, I mind it less that it's short. I will still be like, well, what's the point in doing a show on streaming if you're just going to make it that short? But if it's great, then being short isn't really that big of a problem. But therein lies the beauty of all on-screen storytelling, man. It's all subjective. And if you watched it and you enjoyed, don't let me yuck on your yum. I am telling you that it didn't work for me. And I'm telling you why it didn't work for me. I'm not trying to tell you not to enjoy it, because man, I envy you that you were able to sit down and watch Obi-Wan episode 4 and have a good time, because I wish I did, but I celebrate that you did. And if you enjoyed it, that's great. And don't let anybody, including these 2 yahoos up here, convince you otherwise. If you liked it, and that's all that matters. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Ben. All right. Next up. Ryder writes, why is Vader mad at Reva for letting Obi-Wan get away when he did the same thing in the last episode? Some of the choreography and directing is upsetting to me. Yep. It's first of all, I would have loved to seen Reva go, listen, bitch, didn't you have Obi-Wan in your grasp? But ooh, some fire. I can't possibly use the Force to grab him again. I would have loved to have seen her give him some sass. Of course, that would have been the end of her and she would have been gone at that point. But you're right. He let Obi-Wan get away, and so did she, but he got mad. It's called, what do they call that? When you're really mad at yourself, but what's it called? Deflecting? Is that what they call it?
Sure.
When you're projecting, that's right. Vader's just projecting his own upsetness with himself and putting it on poor Reva. All right.
And also at the end, it's like, well, I put a tracker on their ship. Well, who's to say that Obi-Wan is going to stay where Leia's tracker is anyway? Like, there's no guarantee that, what, are they all going to stick together? Like, he doesn't know that. As far as he knows, Obi-Wan could go off somewhere else. It just doesn't.
Well, Reva does say a line. She goes, where the tracker is, Obi-Wan will not go far from it, because she knows she put on Leia. She knows he's going to stick to Leia. And look, it's a good fail-safe.
I still just don't understand. Why now? Why don't they just go back to Alderaan and drop Leia off
And just wait.
Like, they're in a ship. No, they're ahead. They've got a head start. Kenobi should drop Leia off and be gone.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where he would go.
Because look, they're not going to follow them. So, all right, next up. Oops, there we go. Next up, we've got Stubble McShaver writes, the irony, best of Obi-Wan has happened on Tatooine. Yeah, the one place we've been kind of frustrated that every single Star Wars thing we've been getting is on Tatooine, yet Obi-Wan has been its best on Tatooine.
Because it was about him.
And I'm kind of wishing they never left. Yeah. Maybe I would have wished this was more about Luke and over keeping an eye on Luke.
That's what that book was about.
Love to see more scenes between Owen and Obi-Wan. A little bit of a missed opportunity, but again, I don't want to judge it for what it's not.
Right.
All right. Next up, we got Santez Henderson, who writes, this episode left a lot to be desired. There wasn't any emotional depth to Obi-Wan, just that he had a job to do and he went and did it. Ice Cube Jr. had no depth to him, just appears and that's it. Oh, and that's all he got in there? Okay. But, well, listen, that's a completed thought. I keep forgetting Ice Cube's kid's name. O'Shea Jackson Jr., right. So, I have no qualms with O'Shea Jackson's. Like, he was there. This was clearly he's going to have more of a role to play in the final couple of episodes. So he was there. No problem with who he was. He was married to a Jedi. So it gives some interesting backstory to him. I gotta say, I had no issue with that character for now, because knowing that there's going to be more.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked him when he said, "So I will help you."
Yeah,
I thought he was going to go another way, but he said, "Okay, I'll help you." It was fine.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we've got where are we at? Are we Mr. 47? Yes. Mr. 47 writes, I don't get why people are expecting the story to be epic in scope, full of complex narrative threads. It's simply a tale of what Obi-Wan was up to after Return or Revenge of the Sith, and it's giving us that. Yes, but you can give us a tale of what's going on with Obi-Wan after Revenge of the Sith. That's good. Or you can give us episode 4. And again, listen, I'm being super negative here. Because we are here to talk about episode 4. We are not here to give a rundown of everything that's happened in episode 1, 2, and 3. You guys already heard us talk about episodes 1, 2, and 3. You know I like Obi-Wan up until this point. But to me, this was a pretty bad episode.
I also feel that it's a little generic. I mean, anybody could have been in the position of Obi-Wan. It could have been any hero that's going after Leia. Why wouldn't Obi-Wan go after Leia? He's going after a girl. But what does this have to do with him personally? Other than, like, if we're going to see, well, I feel better now about myself. It's been 10 years. I rescued Leia. The Jedi are still destroyed. They're still being hunted down. What I thought was really interesting was when the Jedi asked for his help, he didn't help that Jedi, and the guy got hung.
Which I thought was a wonderful scene.
Yep, absolutely.
Wonderful scene.
Absolutely. And that dealt with him directly and where he's at. And I feel like, of course, a child's in jeopardy. Why wouldn't you go save her? But what I want is something that's more related to him personally, that has to deal with what we've seen narratively in the prequels that lead into episode 4.
And I would be fine with that, except, like, once that scene happened, right, with that Jedi in the desert, with the Benny Safdie, right?
Yeah.
I thought, okay, so what really this is going to be is Obi-Wan's journey getting back to being himself, that Obi-Wan that we come back and meet in Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, right? I thought we're going to see him discovering himself again. After 10 years of just being broken and beaten, he's going to find himself again. The problem is now we are 2/3 of the way through the series. We've got 2 episodes left.
Right.
So what we are now going to have is none of that growth, none of that development. Let me rephrase. What I fear we are now going to get is none of that growth, none of that evolution. What we're just going to get is just a moment. We're going to get a moment, whether it's when he's confronting Vader again or he's confronting Reva, where all of a sudden the spark will come alive and he'll realize that he's the special. You know, there's a little Lego movie call out for you. He's going to just suddenly realize that he's the special and he can defeat the Kraken and everything will be fine. And it's like, well, then what do we need a series for that for? But again, that's just me worrying about it. I don't know that that's what's going to happen. Maybe we'll start to get some good progression in the next couple of episodes. All right, next up. Mickey Veach writes, using windows to keep out a planet-sized ocean reminds me of the catwalk with no safety handles in Force Awakens, but more stupid. Not just Force Awakens, like that is no safety handles is a long and storied Star Wars tradition. Right. Going all the way back to the tractor beam controls. I'll say, hey, well, we need to throw this whatever switch. Great, where is it? Walk very carefully around the outside of this narrow thing over this big chasm to do it. I mean, the Imperial thing makes some things look very good, but they're not very practical. Not very practical at all. All right, let's see. Charlie Masters writes, Vader should have planted the tracker. That way episode 3 ending makes sense, and Vader can make Obi-Wan the reason the Jedi are found, much more personal. Here's the problem. By this point, 10 years in, there's not, like the Inquisitors already made it really clear in episode 1, there's not many Jedi left.
No.
Now they're just going around for the scraps. There's nothing left. The only prize left is the only one that Vader cares about, Obi-Wan. That's
right.
it.
And remember, at the time of A New Hope, Obi-Wan and Vader are the last. They're the only ones left. They even say that. Yep. You, my friend, are the last. That's what Tarkin says to Vader. You know, and when Obi-Wan shows up again, I sense something
I've not felt since.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Those 18 times I ran into Obi-Wan again. All right, next up. We got, what was that, Charlie? Now we got Lando Mando. I like that username, writes, what a goofy episode. Obi-Wan casually holds Leia by her side in front of tons of troopers with a robe, and no one notices. Painful dialogue, unbelievable events. Why is this happening? It's sad. Okay, I will say this. Look, to give it credit, when Obi-Wan and what's-her-name are walking through the hangar again, there are alarms going off and like the base was almost destroyed and all there's a lot of things going on. There's chaos, there's some commotion, the stuff that Obi-Wan probably meant when he told her to create a diversion. But so nobody's really looking, I will give it that I don't think anybody's really looking closely at these two Imperials and wait, that looks kind of funny, the robe he's got. Like they're dealing with other things. So I will give that part a pass. I will give that one element a pass. I don't know. Do you?
No, because here's the problem. When you're watching something like this, if you're thinking that in your mind, like, wait a minute, no one's seeing them. Like you said, they're clearly the base is under attack or something's going on. You'd think that there'd be people that were vigilant, that were out there watching for anything that's out of the ordinary, anything that's happening, like, but clearly they're really not.
They all had some place to run. Yeah, I don't know where they were all running to, but they were all running somewhere.
And it just seems like in the middle of this Imperial base, anything out of the ordinary would suddenly be suspect. And they're just kind of casually walking. And my problem is that if you think that, if the show has made you think that, like, wait a minute, the show's failed. The way it was staged, the way it was directed, give me something that makes me believe. Like, you're going to hide a 10-year-old girl in your robes? Really?
The Little Rascals did it.
Yeah,
and they got away with it. Are you saying there's something wrong with the Little Rascals? Anyway. All right. Next up, Jamie Sundays writes, I saw the mediocrity coming from miles away. I will always root for Star Wars, but this just feels like a CW show. Where is the artistic care in this? And again, I would say, like, I don't want to sound like a broken record player, but I just go back to episode 1. the artistic merit, the real personal drama going on, the discovering about where and what and the damage that Obi-Wan had been through and suffered and all that kind of stuff, and the state we find him in, almost a sense of hopelessness against this background where his daily routine is so mundane and all he's kind of doing now is just cutting off little pieces of meat so he can give to his space donkey. Yeah. And
buying toys for Luke from the junk dealer.
Buying recognizable toys for Luke and a rather charming interaction with that con man Jawa, right? Yeah. I mean, the promise of episode 1, it's the one thing that makes me nervous about Ms. Marvel, because I freaking love the episode 1 of Ms. Marvel. But now I'm a little bit nervous because I think, well, I love the first episode of Obi-Wan too. But it's there. It's in glimpses and flashes, and then it kind of blows away like the Tatooine sands. It's just I don't know. Here's hoping. All right, are you sure? Hit refresh. Are you sure that's it? Producer Jonathan, there was a problem with one of the online systems that we use. It's not anybody's fault in our room here. So we're using a backdoor way to kind of try to pull up the questions that you guys have sent in. If you
okay, so let's see that. Where did we
it was a little earlier because we haven't done Jamie Sundays. I think that was it. No, it must have been another Jamie Sundays one.
Mando.
No, a little. We didn't get that one yet. Yeah, there's another Jamie Sundays. Hold on a second. Go up a bit. Yeah, keep going up. And there we go. So we're at Luke 1234, who writes, Leia out-acted Reva. Yeah, she did.
Yes, she did.
But to be fair, that kid is out-acting almost everybody. That kid is, I don't care what anybody says, that kid's great.
She is great. It's like she knows where she's supposed to be.
Yep. All right, next up. We've got that was Luke Kane, where Aiden Foley writes, enjoyed it enough, but disappointing compared to at least 3 episodes. Hope it gets better. And where the F did Obi-Wan get that trench coat from? These are questions best unasked. Where did exactly he
from the prisoner interrogation closet?
Well, kind of like to me, like in
the Inquisition
in Stranger
closet.
Things, when they go into the Upside Down, where did they get all those light flashlights from?
Yeah.
They certainly didn't dive into the water with those flashlights. Where did those? Let's just not ask those questions. Although it's a good question. All right, Marvel Mania writes, I wish I was enjoying this show as much as I did the first episode. It's not bad, but it's only just okay. I wanted it to be great. Not giving up yet, though. Yeah, I am not giving up either. This episode was terrible. But I am not giving up. It is one episode. Just like we shouldn't get too excited when one episode is amazing, like I did with Ms. Marvel, we shouldn't get too distraught when one episode is utterly terrible. I still think this whole show can be turned around in episodes 5 and 6.
Hey,
but they better do something quick.
I am with you. You know how much I love Star Trek. There's an episode of Star Trek called And the Children Shall Lead that very might possibly be the worst episode of science fiction television of all time. And I hate it, even though I love Star Trek.
And how did the next episode do?
It was better.
Hey, John.
Hey, Ray.
I don't know how you want to do this, but I got a member super chat.
Oh, a member wrote in. What did a member write?
Yeah. The fact I'm here and don't care about...
Well, Ray, we can't hear you. Come on over here and read it off.
No. It says Dr. Nova.
Dr. Nova.
Says, the fact I'm here and don't care about Star Wars says a lot about you. P.S.
Aw.
Hope everyone likes the gifted memberships.
Oh, that's great. So, Dr. Nova says the fact that they don't even like Star Wars, but they're here, says just how big of a fan they are of the channel. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving those gifted memberships. That is honestly like the coolest thing when I see members giving things to other members.
Yeah,
that's a very, very cool thing. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here. All right, let's keep going here. Next up, we got Stephen Wolf, who writes, 1 of 4. Hey, John and Rob, not sure what to say about this show other than Ewan deserves better. The storyline is getting weaker after every episode. I think that the volume is losing its novelty as they are leaning on it too heavily. I think this episode didn't do that, though. But anyway, the sets seem to be less 2022 movie-like and more 2002 effects. Here's where, yeah, that's exactly what I said. Here's where I am confused. There are other sci-fi shows such as The Foundation, Raised by Wolves, and 3 or 4, the like, which seem to have not only a more epic scope and more real world production value, but they don't have anywhere near the same brand recognition that of Star Wars. Is Disney not putting its real weight behind these Disney Plus shows the same way Apple and HBO have been? And if so, why? Thank you guys for being awesome. Listen, the most pessimistic thing I've said today, and I have said some damn pessimistic things today, but the most pessimistic thing I've said today was a little bit earlier on the John Campea Show, where I said, I am starting to just feel that Disney doesn't care. That the prime directive for Disney right now with these shows is do them as many as possible, as cheap as possible. Make them short, make them like short episodes, short seasons, and crank them out and just get them out the door. Look, I don't expect, I've said this before, I do not expect a TV show to look like, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the, I don't expect it to have that same look. But we've seen smaller budget shows do much better visual effects, give much better senses of scope. And it really is starting to feel like, to me, they're just, with a few brilliant exceptions, like Mandalorian season 1, things like that. But it's starting to feel like under Bob Chapek's banner, it's just like, just crank him out. And I hope I'm wrong.
See, for me, John, it's all about writing, because the sets.
Ray keeps laughing at us.
You brought Chapek into this?
Yeah, he said, somehow I brought Bob Chapek into this. Yes, I did. That's the John Campea bingo card of the day. Did he mention Chapek yet? Yep. Boom. There we go.
Look, to me, you can forgive sets and visual effects. I'm a big fan of low budget genre fare. I've been my whole life. It's always about writing to me. And I think that in this case, the writing has been lackluster. The scenes, like when you see the scene between Reva and Leia, it was the writing. That's two people in an interrogation can be really riveting stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's just two people in a room. And I could show you examples throughout science fiction television history. I won't bring them up all now, but that they've done just that. One of the great Next Generation episodes, when you have David Warner and Patrick Stewart, There Are Four Lights. The entire episode practically is two dudes sitting on opposite sides of a desk, and one's interrogating and torturing the other. And it's one of the most riveting hours of science fiction television ever. All the writing. It's all writing.
All right, next up. We got Mr. 47. Oh, no. Sorry, it was Chris Barcinas who writes, I just enjoyed the Vader scenes. Listen, it's always... Business picks up, to quote JR, business picks up when Vader enters the room. Whenever Vader enters the room, business picks up. Doesn't mean the scene ends up being a great scene, but it always feels better as soon as Vader shows up.
Again, though, that James Earl Jones voice, man, they've nailed it.
It makes it.
It makes it.
Yeah.
Like they should just, I would watch a show where he just, like you said, Angry Vader, just watch Vader go places and being mad.
Yeah. McDonald's. McDonald's. Where's the sweet and sour sauce?
I'm just
Stuck in traffic.
Yeah, do a new version of the Vader sessions on YouTube.
Did you ever see the online series called, I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's about Darth Vader's brother, I think it is. Or no, it's Darth Vader, but it's after the Death Star and he's working in a grocery store.
Yeah.
You've seen it?
Yes.
It's like 15 years old.
Yeah.
Or it might even be called Chad Vader.
I think it is called Chad Vader.
Where it's literally, he's now just a guy working in a grocery store. And I think there's 5 or 6 episodes. I don't know how many were, but it was absolutely hilarious. Anyway, we got to keep going here. Next up, we got Mr. 47 writes, all the logic problems are valid. However, if stormtroopers were competent, this entire franchise couldn't exist. Why expect sharpshooters now? Folly. Yeah, listen, but here's the thing. I'm not expecting sharpshooters. It is a narrow, confined hallway, and he's standing right there with his back to you, and there's 4 of you and a droid. And look, none of you can hit him.
When we first see Star Wars in the original A New Hope, those stormtroopers, when they're coming on that Rebel blockade runner, that's the first time we see them shooting. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're killing.
They can be. That must have been the 501st.
Yeah, they're killing those Rebel soldiers, man. And the stormtroopers, you don't want the trope to be that they can't hit anybody.
But that is.
I know.
And listen, we can't blame Obi-Wan for that. That has been the thing about stormtroopers, like for Star Wars, ever since, the original movie. All right. Next up, we got Raymond Verata who writes, I think it's building up to Ben versus Reva, not Vader. That will be a monumental mistake. Nobody tuned into this show to watch Vader versus Reva. People tuned into this show for the promise of Vader and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan and Vader. I mean, not Obi-Wan and Reva, Obi-Wan and Vader. That's what people have tuned into this show for. Hey, listen, I want a Obi-Wan and Reva confrontation. I absolutely do. But the main event, the showstopper, has got to be Obi-Wan versus Vader. If it is not, more importantly than me personally having my little whiny ass upset about it, it is going to piss off there will be a tidal wave of anger from people. Like, if they don't pay that off, like, it's that thing we got in episode 3, that was the confrontation we got. People are going to be upset, man. People are really
The leaks
upset.
are real. You know,
All right.
Come on.
Next up, there's the bug. All right, Tim Platt writes, I really hope Reva is secretly trying to kill Vader or some mission like that, because I'm really struggling to buy into her character as it feels off. Listen, I have said since episode 1 and 2 that one of the weaker things, while she is an award-nominated actress who has been in like frickin' The Tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel Washington, and she was in The Queen's Gambit and killed it in The Queen's Gambit. She is clearly a gifted actress. But every time an actor comes into a role, they have to do a connection with what that role is and determine what it is that character, how that character is going to manifest. And to me, they've just made the wrong decisions with it, because I am not buying into the character at all.
And the way it's written. I mean, I go back to the writing.
Yep.
I mean, you've got to, you do a production rewrite to service your actors. And it feels like they haven't served her well.
All right, next up. We've got Dylan Bryant, who writes, I think the episode was fine, and it was such a treat for fans of Fallen Order game. Obi-Wan has foresight, John. He doesn't need to turn around. Yes, but he wasn't blocking anything behind him.
Yeah.
Like, if he was doing the whole lightsaber behind the back thing and blocking some shots behind, I'd be fine. But he wasn't doing that. And you know what? You're right. I think just going back to the Inquisitorius for people who played Fallen Order was probably a treat. That was probably a treat. But do something good there. Going there is great, but you got to do something good there.
And make it formidable.
Yes.
Like, have some protection.
Yeah, not that anybody can walk in at any time. I feel like Kevin McAllister could have broken into that place and like had slippery ice for Fifth Brother to fall on and go, ah! And I seriously think he could have taken down the whole place himself.
I mean, if Fifth Brother keeps getting ammunition, like, would you please do something about this woman?
And by the way, and can we please have Fifth Brother do something other than walking around bitch? That's all he does. Every time we see Fifth Brother, he's just walking around and bitching about something. Wah, wah, wah. Like, that's all he's done this frickin' show. Anyway. All right, next up. Lando Mando writes, where was the emotion? Zero intensity, and I never felt anyone was in any real danger. The episode felt so weak and short. Darth Vader's voice, no. Yeah, I agree. Other than Obi-Wan should be a little muted. Obi-Wan should be a little reserved. And when he was expressing, I have got to go get Leia, like, I thought he was playing that perfectly right. I thought that was played perfectly right. But as far as from anybody else, like Vader bursts in and he's upset. He was placated pretty easily. Well, yeah, I know they got away, but I had a backup plan to put a bug on him. I underestimated you. Really? Because she's an idiot. She had maybe one of the two twins who are the most powerful force beings in the galaxy right now. And she didn't even know this kid was force sensitive. But yeah, anyway. All right. Next up. Raven Verada writes, more celebs making cameos. Are they paid pro bono? Oh, no, they're definitely paid.
Yeah, they're paid.
Yeah, nobody's showing up and doing these things pro bono. There's no way their agents would allow that. Charlie Masters writes, Vader could have planted a tracker in episode 3 fight. More personal as Vader causes Obi-Wan to reveal Jedi, makes episode 3 ending better and moves the story along. Except, no, it wouldn't make any sense. Once again, we kind of covered this. It would make no sense whatsoever. Vader doesn't care about anybody else.
Right.
He only cares about Obi-Wan. That's it. And again, we pointed this out earlier. At this point, 10 years on, there were hardly any Jedi left. There were only scraps of them in the Inquisitor's Works. There's hardly any of them left already. So no, Vader's number one priority was not getting those other few meaningless Jedi that happened to be scampering around. His only focus, his only rage is Obi-Wan. And it makes no sense. Anything in the narrative that bypasses that core truth is folly. All right, next up. Fangblaze71 who writes, I hate to be mean, but I can't lie. I really hated Reva's acting in this episode. I can't help but feel like this whole show is fan-made with a big budget. Dare I say it feels fan-made with a fan-made budget.
Yeah, and it is fan-made. And it doesn't feel like it's very professional.
I just, and listen again, I don't know that it is the acting. It is the choices that have been made about how to manifest this character that just feel completely disconnected from everything else in the world that they've created. And that's a problem.
Well, also, what I don't like is that when they introduced us to the Inquisitors in episode 1, I love that scene. Those Inquisitors, the way they were toying with everybody, and making fun of making fun of these people. I'm going to come get you. They were terrifying, And even when you saw the way they treated the other citizens on Tatooine, they were scary. Reva would kill people. She would have killed Owen Lars in a second. I feel now that they're kind of the Keystone Cops. Now that now they've lost the Grand Inquisitor, they kind of wander around and they're kind of like you said, Sun Kang just bitches. He's just complaining. He's like C-3PO without the manners. and the Reva is I don't know what she's doing. I don't understand where she's coming from in all this. I mean, why is she even? I understand she wants to find something out from Leia, but why is Leia her focus? She trumped up this thing to get Leia kidnapped in the first place. She should know Leia has nothing really to offer you. She's got nothing. You got to find Kenobi. You should know that Kenobi came for Leia once. You should be laying another trap, using her as bait again.
I'll give them this. Maybe you could say that her whole thing was knowing that it was the members of the Underground Jedi Railway that took Obi-Wan away, that if she can find this Underground Railway, that would be finding Kenobi. Maybe. I'm trying to be an apologist for it.
No, it's true, point. but she wouldn't even know, other than the fact that she found this railway while she was pursuing Kenobi. There's nothing that she should even. Why should she even think that Kenobi's involved?
Yeah.
Also, how did Kenobi at the beginning of this episode? How did he even escape? Last episode, how did he get where he was going?
Didn't you see that the big droid picked him up? You can't listen. Do you not yet know that in this show you cannot chase somebody? They cannot be chased. Once somebody is more than 15 feet away, you are required by the laws of the universe to not give chase.
Or you just find them at the end of the tunnel and you're just there.
Yeah, and just be there when they get there. All right, next up. Jamie Sundays writes, George Lucas was able to build the originals in a cave with a box of scraps.
That was a good Jeff Bridges.
Thank you. I like a little Iron Man callback there. I like that. All right. Thank you, Jamie. Next up, Josh Kahn writes, last week I talked about a few moments causing me to roll my eyes. This episode was almost all eye roll. So I guess Vader did let Obi-Wan escape for no reason. I wish he got some of her perspective. Listen, he did not let him go. Why are you freaking people so stupid? There was fire between Vader and Obi-Wan.
Well, he's scared of fire.
Fire bad. He was burned. He was traumatized by fire. Never mind the fact that he just caused the fire and dragged Obi-Wan into it. The fire blocks him. Come on, everybody, don't be dumb. Yeah,
dude, he can force choke people from a long distance.
No, he was force choking him all that distance. So now, and he caused the fire, dragged Obi-Wan into the fire. But wait a minute, now somebody else caused the fire? The Force, guys, don't you know the Force doesn't work through fire? Come on, don't be so dumb. Okay. Anyway, all right, next up, Daniel Fakura writes, this episode completely undercut Reva as an intimidating presence since she couldn't scare a 10-year-old. Those pauses reminded me of bad WWE promos. The leaps in logic just makes characters look dumb. And again, the one thing that gets back to me is, okay, you know what? If you want to say to me that as a child prodigy, the offspring of Anakin Skywalker, Leia is no ordinary 10-year-old.
Sure.
And I buy that. I completely buy that. And like Reva, an Inquisitor, could not penetrate her mind, despite the fact that we've seen her do it really easily to everybody else. She could not penetrate her mind. I buy that. Using Marvel terms, Leia's a Nexus being. I mean, she doesn't know it yet, but she is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. The Force, the Emperor himself would fear her. How come she couldn't figure out? This is funny. I can crack into the mind of anybody, but not this kid. You are a terrible Inquisitor. You are a terrible Inquisitor. Possibly the most important and powerful force being in the galaxy is sitting in front of you, and you can't penetrate their mind, and you're not putting two and two together.
And you know what else? I mean, again, to harp on the writing, this would have been a great opportunity to one the characters, both of them. You could have had Leia talking because she's observing her father. She's going to be later one of the most important, one of the founders of the rebellion, whatever. And Reva, they could have had a really interesting conversation that meant something, that illuminated both of their characters in some way. And there was a little bit of that when she said, Reva alluded to the fact that, I recognize your strength, that kind of thing. There was a kernel.
You're strong.
Well, there was a kernel of something that could have been really, really interesting, because if in fact, Reva is the youngling that we saw in the episode,
which she definitely is.
So she is. There could have been regret. There could have been something where she, in confronting Leia, she's seeing the person she might have been once, but that was robbed, that was taken from her.
By the way, you and I discussed before that you can't do a redemption arc for this Reva character. You absolutely can't now, because you only have probably about an hour and 10 minutes left in this show. And she was just about to use military torture on a child. So they better not pull some, oh, you know what? I had a second thought. No, I want to be a good guy again. It's too late for that. You would have had to have started her redemption arc, I think, in episode 2.
Is it though, John?
Is it?
With these writers,
really? Is it though? All right.
Does it hurt? Does it hurt?
We're a little bit overtime, so we're going to try to get through these as quick as we can. James Hoffman writes, a ridiculous moment for me was when Obi-Wan walked out wearing an Imperial trench coat as a disguise, with Leia hiding inside. There were guards and officers everywhere, and nobody knows. Again, I will give it a pass just because of the chaos that was going on. But yeah, it was kind of paramount to putting her on Obi-Wan's shoulders and then putting the trench coat over that only her head sticking up as they're walking around. I mean, it was kind of paramount, but again, I'll personally give it a pass because of the chaos, but yeah, it was a little bit of a stretch. Fang. All right. Fangblaze71 writes, I will say it was really cool to see Obi-Wan hold back the water, even though it did feel like an exact copy of when Vader held it back in Fallen Order. Yeah, but you got to remember, 95% of the people watching this show never played Fallen Order and probably never even heard of it. So that was one thing. And again, we're seeing Obi-Wan bit by bit tapping into the Force again, because that should have been no problem for him.
Right.
That should have been no problem. But still, we're starting to see him exercise it a bit. And I will listen, I spent a part of the show pointing out all things that I thought were pretty good about this episode. I like that moment. I think you're right. I like that moment as well. All right, next up. We got Daniel Vakura, who writes, I know Rob has brought this up with the technology used, but Obi-Wan just looks like fake sets. It seems empty to me with the usage of space and lack of people, which breaks the immersion for me. You know what? Here's the thing. I would say yes to that for a lot of what we've seen in the show so far. In all the things I hated about this episode, the sets and the lived-in feeling of it, I think that was there for this episode.
Yeah, I would, especially when they landed at the hangar deck. There was a lot of activity, a lot of stuff was going on. And I just felt like, you know what, this is such a crazy question for me, but like when you were underwater, like in the central hub, the command hub, whatever that is, I like all that stuff. But what is the rest of that building for? Like it's this big facility that's built in the water, the Inquisitorium or whatever. Like you've got a couple of rooms to interrogate people, but what does the rest of that building do?
They house parts, maintenance, and actual TIE fighters that apparently don't fly. That's what they do, Rob. You need a lot of space for all them TIE fighters and all the spare parts and all the people to maintain those ships that will never fly.
And I never thought I would see snow speeders outfly anything from an Imperial base.
No. It's like, well, I mean, like we could chase them, but that's a snow speeder. We have no chance.
Well, those speeders were only modified for the cold.
It's 'tis folly to chase it. I mean, come on. All right. Next up, Raymond Verrado writes, I wish they use Vivian Blair soon before she grows up. I'm sorry. I don't know who Vivian Blair is.
That's the girl playing Leia.
Oh, is that the name of the little girl playing Leia? I want to see her in a lot of stuff, man. I think this kid's great. I think this kid is straight up great. All right, Daniel Vakura also writes, Leia getting captured and saved twice in one season, like Ahsoka getting captured and breaking out twice in that second last arc of Clone Wars, was a poor use of time. Should have been a film with the filler. It absolutely should have been a film. You know what? I didn't even think about that. This is the second time in this very short season that we've had to have a rescue of Leia. And I'm not going to be surprised if they do a third. I mean, because they're going to track her down. They're going to get her again. And then once again, Obi-Wan's going to say, I will go get her alone. And then everybody says, no, we'll come with you. Yay. And then somebody will die that we have no reason to care about why they die. By the way, again, I want to bring that up. Dude dies. And then at the end, they have this real somber moment. Oh, where is he? Where is he? Where's the guy? Oh, the guy died, didn't you know? Oh, and we're supposed to, as an audience, feel any kind of an emotional weight when we literally saw him for about 5 seconds on screen and maybe say one line. I mean, poorly set up. Anyway,
I cry for the stormtroopers, John.
I cry for the stormtroopers. The one that falls down from being slapped on the side of the head. Let's see. Lando Mando writes, not sure if it's just me, but the visual effects on the ships at the end, what the fuck? It took me out. Also, zero emotion towards Wade's death. I was just saying that, right? Was that his name, by the way, Wade? His name might as well have been Boopki, because I wouldn't know, because we didn't care, because we never even knew he was relevant.
And that woman that's all sad, she's the girl from Pen 15, right? Or,
is that who that is?
yeah, is that who?
Oh, Ann will get a big kick out of that.
Yeah, or as I like to say, penis.
Yeah, and well, that's the play on it, right? Anne loves that show. Anne, unfortunately, though, fell asleep halfway through the episode of Boba Fett, or of Obi-Wan. All right, where are we at here? Jamie Sundays writes, are you guys liking the cinematography? It's kind of meh. I'll say this. On Tatooine, I thought it was great. I love the way they would frame the shots. I was very aware that they're in the volume and everything, but still, the way they frame their shots, all that kind of stuff, very happy about it. There was even some stuff in that subpar episode 2 when they're on that more rural kind of urban kind of planet, right? Some of that wasn't bad, even though they did some ridiculous things in it. This episode, I thought there was some actual harking back to the original George Lucas cinematography. The original, you know what? So I got to say, no, I haven't minded the cinematography in the series so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better than a lot of what we saw in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So that's good.
All right, next up. We've got Joel who writes, and is this the final one of the day, guys? Okay, Joel writes, our final one of the day. I know it's a money issue, but I think these shows would do better if they were 12 episodes split into 2 parts. What? I see. So do 6 episodes and then do 6 episodes. I see what you're saying. 2 parts. A series would have room for a story. Listen, I have been saying this all along. The 6 episode model does not work. It either feels like something that should have been an hour to 2 hour, a 2 hour like movie, or it feels like an incredibly rushed series. Either way, it's just a poor use of the thing.
And I do think that there are examples of like Bodyguard, the British show Bodyguard.
Yeah.
That was 6 episodes. One of my favorite science fiction shows, Torchwood Miracle Day, or pardon me, not Miracle Day, I hate Miracle Day. Torchwood Children of Earth was 5 episodes, but they were 5 solid hour-long
I was going to say, yeah, but what was the length of those episodes?
And those are great. So it can be done. But this is like, if they have to rescue Leia a 3rd time in 6 episodes...
again, it's just, especially when you're 6 episodes and you turn on Obi-Wan, you see 36 minutes. And you're like, really? Especially when you know that they do like 5 minutes of credits. And not to mention the minute and a half of previously on Obi-Wan, then the little Star Wars, like all that's counted in the runtime. And it just doesn't work. If you want to do the Stranger Things thing and you make each episode an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes, then you got more room to breathe there. You can do a little bit more with that. But this like 35 to 40 minutes, once you take away credits episodes for 6, what's the point? I'm kind of wondering what is the point. Anyway, guys, I just want to close off this thing. Like a lot of negativity. A lot of negativity in this episode. And I hate being overly negative. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I like to focus on the positive. I like to celebrate the things I love, not bash on the things I hate. That's why you don't see me making videos about the prequels. And I don't make videos I don't do that stuff. But I am still going to believe, with hope, that episodes 5 and 6 are going to bring this show home. But, I still got to call as I see it. Unfortunately, I just think episode 4 was a dud. Anyway, final thoughts on the episode, Rob.
Look, I too am going to tune in next week and hope it's great. I mean, I don't like to not like Star Wars. Star Wars is one of my favorite things in the world, and Ewan McGregor is still killing it as Obi-Wan. I'm disappointed in the writing of the show, and hopefully with Andrew Stanton writing, there's been my big complaint. They're changing it up in the next two weeks with somebody who is really good and really knows how to tell a story.
So let's see how that works out. Guys, big thank you to all of you for joining us here today for this episode of the Obi-Wan After Show. I don't know why any of you would come back again next week, but we'll be here in case you do. Big special thank you to those of you who sent in the Super Chats. Number 1, because you gave us really good things to talk about. But number 2, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with our channel here, thank you guys so much for that support. I want to thank Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at RMBurnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me at the Post Geek Singularity on YouTube or on the website.
And you guys can, of course, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter, simply at John Campea. Thanks to Ray Ora back there, producer Jonathan Voico. Ray's done nothing. I don't know how well you could hear him. Ray's done nothing but sit back there and ridicule and laugh at us this whole time. Producer Jonathan Voico for running the show. And thank you to you guys for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.